Hello, everyone. This is EbonyKeeper from EbonyKeeper.blog, or I should say John Paul Lamage, right? So this is episode 2 of Marketing with EbonyKeeper, and the topic is unrealized potential. So for those who are getting in live, for those who are getting in, you can comment live. For those who are getting on as the replay, you can comment if you're watching it as a replay, because I am going to be posting this up to my blog along with the first episode shortly. They're not as high priority as the interview episodes, but they still take priority. So hey Tiny, welcome. If y'all don't know, Charnay's nickname here is Tiny. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. I, I hear you doing big things over in New York. It's good to see. So this show is just about me sharing what's in my head and what's in my heart about marketing. And for those who may not understand my own definition of marketing, I think everything that you do is marketing. Love you too, Tony. Most stuff. It doesn't matter if it's the art that you do. Hey, I dig it. Yeah, we all are. We got to make it. But hopefully I see you in Los Angeles next month, April 12th. Eh? That would be dope. But yeah, marketing to me is everything that we do, because honestly, as I said in the last episode, you're either being sold to or you're doing the selling. Oh, shoot. Hey, Lemon. I should probably call you Jake now since I'm out of the military. Yeah. But thanks for coming. But, right, as I was saying, man, uh, let's see. I got off track. I got off track. Oh God. Yeah. So marketing, right? Marketing, I feel like, is a very organic situation. I feel like everything that we're doing is marketing. Hello, Candace. Welcome. With my art, with business, with even the philosophies that we represent, and the politics. How do you say in English? The policies and the sort of political systems that we believe in. That everybody has to sell it their way, or else nobody's gonna buy into, your belief. Nobody's gonna, buy into why they should make Obama the president, and then he became the president. So I believe everything is marketing, but then deeper than that, I believe marketing is very organic. So I'm going to be getting into that with this, is along with the unrealized potential of a human being, right? That's what this episode is about, and I feel like that ties very into marketing. Just from my personal experience, since I draw a lot of experience from art and business, so I everything really comes down to like the epiphanies that you had and the people that you meet and the sort of plateaus you break through, right? So getting into it. First, I want to really mark down what is intelligence, because I notice when I meet people, people are like, oh, you're so smart, you know all these things, you read all these books and everything like that. And for me, from my personal perspective, I don't really believe in a person being smart, or on the other end of the spectrum, a person being stupid. Why do I say that? And this goes down to vocabulary words, two terms that I learned that really helped me understand people, because other people overstimulated me. I did not understand how to understand why people did, the things that they did, especially when I was 10 years old. And, I just kept attracting a lot of bullies. I don't know why. And that's just what it was, and it took me a long time to understand why a person could be mean to another person. When I was 10, my conclusion was, okay, other people are robots. And I didn't think my mom was a robot, because I was just like, she's too nice of a person, so there's no way she's not a robot. So I crossed off the list. Everybody else was a robot, though. It's the only way I could explain, why other people were so mean, why people could bully others, why people could hurt others. So as I started to, read more books in different genres other than fantasy, and I started to do things like meditation and got out of being an agnostic atheist, and I started having mentors where I could actually bounce back ideas and philosophies and things where I had wrong, or things that I need to. What are you laughing at, Tiny? Things that just didn't make sense to me. I started to be able to carve at what I believe in and what's true and what's wrong. What's he saying? Everyone was a robot. No, like for real. Like you don't understand. I was literally jumped by like 10 boys in like elementary school. And like literally like a whole ocean of males were running after me to jump me just because I was like a bookworm. And the guy who was like leading all of them, he was like a red green. And he was a brilliant person, very high logical intelligence. I'll be getting into the 7 intelligences a little bit later, but I don't exactly know why he did not like me so much. Yeah, for real, it was crazy. But like this girl named Darlene Floyd like saved me, and I was like bleeding and everything like that, and she just pulled me out of everybody. Darlene's amazing. Yeah, so that was a long time ago, right? So right, why do people hurt others, right? So the terms that I actually became intrinsically involved with that helped me understand other people is thematic interconnectedness and cognitive dissonance, right? So I got the term thematic interconnectedness from someone who is really curious. Now, notice I used words like curious rather than brilliant for people because I don't believe anyone is actually brilliant. So this person is named Josh Watskin, and Josh is a very curious person. If you've never heard of him, I definitely recommend listening to episode 2 of Tim Ferriss' interview with Josh Watskin. Very introverted person. Josh, if you don't know, he beat a computer at chess when he was about 16 years old, a few months a few months younger than Bobby Fischer. Welcome, Margaret. Good to see you, cousin. Cousin, I sounded so formal. Yes, but yeah. So Josh Watskin, beat a computer at chess when he was about 16 years old, a few years younger than Bobby Fischer, who, if you don't know, Bobby Fischer put chess on the map. He made it a sport after he beat a computer when he was about 16. Now people can actually earn money from playing chess. It's an actual sport. It's serious now. But Josh started to gain so much publicity that throngs of girls would come to his matches and they would distract him. He wasn't able to get into that flow state when he got into playing games. If you're not familiar with the term flow state, it's very much like an active meditation. A lot of world-class athletes or anyone who does anything at a high level, speakers, Les Brown, Johnny Wimber, if they're not in flow states all the time, they typically meditate to get into a flow state, and then they'd go and do those speeches, and they share that higher level of vibration with us. And so people remark them as brilliant and all these things, when in reality, we'll get into that. So anyway, so Josh Watskin, he was in New York, and one of the best like Tai Chi push hands instructors lived over there, and he had a studio or a dojo, whatever the word is, and he actually recommended that Josh try something called meditation. He was 16, 17 years old. And it was cool because I got into meditation when I was 20. So he had a bit of a head start on me, yeah. And, so he started trying this thing called meditation, spending time with his inner self. And he found it very curious. He found that he could establish peace, which was what he really cared about because he had the success and all these things at such a young age. But all he had was chaos to go along with it. So, you find that some of the most successful people in the world meditate regularly, if not daily. Welcome, Jerome. Pleasure to have you. Yes. So, Josh started meditating, and 6 months into doing this meditation regularly, that instructor advised him, how about you try the active component of Tai Chi, called push hands. Tiny, I need to learn meditation. I need peace in my life. Yeah, I can definitely hook you up with the guy who's the reason I got into meditation when I was 20 years old. He shows you exactly what to do with the meditation. You just listen to him. Go in a quiet place. I'll text you, Tiny. No worries, I got you. Meditation has helped me so much. I can't even lie. Yeah. So 6 months into doing it, he started, as his instructor advised him, to get into push hands, the fighting style. And he started to notice unconsciously that ideas that occurred in his mind while he was sparring with the fighting style would be a new thought that would have never been there if he had not have had so much mastery in chess, if he had not have had so much mastery in meditation or familiarity with meditation. If you don't like, regard mastery with meditation as being part of the same vocabulary, I definitely understand where you're coming from. But yeah, so I remember it was a few weeks into doing this practicing with his sparring partner that he started to, I remember one particular time when he noticed an opening in his sparring partner's stance, and his partner literally jumped away as if uh, just it was crazy, and his partner was like, hey, it felt like a wave of force just hit me, and that's when Josh started to take it very, very seriously. He became a worldwide champion in push hands in 2001. I think it was. He lost against like the best fighter in the world in, I think it was, Korea. And then for a year he practiced every single day, 8 hours per day. And he came back in 2002, I believe, to fight that person. But then that person had dropped a weight class to fight somebody else. So he ended up fighting this huge guy. But people from Korea, if anybody y'all watching this live, what were y'all doing in 2002, all right? They only wanted people who were from their country to, represent. They didn't want any foreigner to beat someone from hometown. So they were actually messing with Josh Watson's points, and if you know me, like, after I read Gregory David Roberts' book, Shantaram, and then he was interviewed by that chick who didn't even read his book, and that's for another episode. Gregory David Roberts is an entirely complex character. Definitely recommend Shantaram though. But yeah, this chick, with all this makeup and all this stuff, brought him onto her show and did not even read his book and was just blatantly offensive, asking him questions that were just disrespectful. He was somebody who overcame being addicted to cocaine and all these drugs and being a robber and, going to jail and becoming like a slum doctor, and now he's a millionaire, almost died, all this craziness, from Australia to India. Anyway, yeah, so in 2002, he ended up going against that guy, and dang, they were messing with his points. And on the last round, he almost pushed the guy out of the match, but the guy refused to get pushed out, and I think he almost broke the guy's legs. So they those medalists put it to a draw, pretty much. So that is what it is. But he ended up going to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after that, became a worldwide champion, and he noticed with each of these different disciplines that he was gaining mastery, and ideas would formulate in his mind, especially in the moment, and during the match, where it never would have occurred to him if he had not had such mastery in chess or meditation or Tai Chi, And I remember, like, at first, before every match, he would do about an hour-long meditation to get into his flow state. And then he wanted to collapse that time, so it didn't take as long. So it took a lot of practice, but he collapsed it from 1 hour to 50 minutes to get into the flow state. And then 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, if not, and then got it down to 5 minutes, 1 minute, all about repetition is the mother of all skill. Just depends on the skill that you're repeating, right? Welcome, Michelle. We're talking about unrealized potential. Yes. So, right. So Josh Watson, from those experiences, ended up, writing a book called The Art of Learning. And it was very interesting because after, the championship as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter, he ended up also working with CEOs of companies and everything like that, helping them sort of, being like the personal coach and teaching them, like, their weaknesses and their strengths. And with them listening to his personal wisdom, they were able to, like, scale their businesses to whatever goals they were. So a few schools, like, commissioned him to actually improve the quality and, everything that they're going through. They figured he was the right guy for the job. So this is where the term thematic interconnectedness comes into play. So he went to these schools, and he would have, like, the gym teacher, the social studies teacher, the math teacher, the English teacher, all these teachers. He would have them form a unit pretty much. And once per week, they would meet up and they would talk about, the issues that were going on in their school. And any decision that they actually came to terms with, it was almost as if they were edified to be like the school's new board of advisors. And any decision they, decided on, the school would immediately put into place. And so many schools actually saw much better improvement from that experience. So, he ended up calling that thematic interconnectedness. So, what I personally took from that, because that was like the biggest thing. I love his story and everything like that. But every single time I'm researching about a new person, their journey and everything like that, I'm always looking for things that I can personally take. And they're typically always like new vocabulary terms or something like that, or a new idea to try or whatever. And that was what I really took from his book, The Art of Learning. Definitely recommend that book. If you are, sick and tired of having a lot of conversations with our inner idiot, a lot of the times when we're only subscribing to our own personal, mind, and we're not reading books or meditating or anything like that, or having mentors, a lot of the times our conversation is dryly with our inner idiot. And I have mine, but then I know I have to disrupt that conversation with higher frequencies of, say, The Art of Learning and, Tim Ferriss podcasts, or, my business, whatever the case, right? You get it. Right. So thematic interconnectedness. Now, how I took that personally is say, for example, I'll give you like this. I'm a spoken word poet, and I had a friend who was a very good poet in India, and he could write a piece consistently, per week. And by then, at that time period, I could only write a piece every few months. It was terrible. I was just it took me so long to write a piece. Now it takes me a day. But back then, repetition is the mother of all skills. So, I asked him, I was like, bro, how in the world do you consistently write all these beautiful things? And he was like, well, he leaves his house, he walks through graveyards, and he, sits on the waterfalls, and he just communes with nature. And it just felt it felt like I was hit by a bolt of lightning, as they said, the epiphany. So I jumped on a bicycle, and I had not worked out in a very long time. And I literally rode my butt off to my old high school in Queens, New York, and Flushing. And I was so tired. But when I was going uphill, this old white guy was trying to motivate me, to keep going on. And he was like, going, keep going. And for some reason that stuck in my head. And I was like, when I get to the graveyard, I'm gonna write that in the piece, And when I got a few blocks later, this middle-aged Hispanic guy was like, oh, welcome, Samuel. This middle-aged Hispanic guy was like, the wind is pushing you back, something like that. I think I'm mixing it up. I'll tell you the piece, as a matter of fact, so context. And, I was like, I'm gonna write that in the piece as well. So, by the time I got to the graveyard, those were the immediate first lines that I wrote. Oh, welcome, Mr. Cruz, Daddy Cruz, as they call you, yes? We're just talking about unrealized potential, and yeah, so, when I got to the graveyard, I was like, okay, so what do I do? I'm just going to commune with nature, as he said, right? So the first thing I did before I forgot was I wrote down those lines that those people screamed at me. And then I started walking around the graveyards, reading this person's, what was written on this person's tomb. Some of the tombs had different languages on them, and I was just like, okay, I'll just sort of be here. I'll be present in the moment, and I'll just see if I can feel the energy and stuff like that. Because this is around the time I was getting into meditation. So I was a bit more open to things say, when I was an atheist, I was not open to at all, right? So, and this is how the piece goes, so I can give you the context. So it goes, I died. The wind is pushing you back, shouted the elderly Caucasian man moving at the green light. Right on, man, I replied, words almost lost in the wind. A little girl next to her mother asked him in crossing, what did he say? Onwards I went, lungs wheezing with the effort of a body only in shape due to luck, and jeans huffing and puffing up a steep turn into Main Street. I redoubled my effort. Going, keep going, a middle-aged Hispanic man blessed. What was the response, immediately filling these streets with the beat of every pedal's rotation complete? Finally, my target came into view, a place that leaves all with the bitter distaste of cheeks bloating with mistakes, where it is thought kidney stones formed from dreams long gone toxify the air. as if fountains source from every grave spout bouts of inhalable despair. And yet, I'm here. And I come in peace. I see dozens and hundreds of names of our ancestors whose existence are summarized in 5 words or less. And I laugh, what are we to this world? To ourselves, the billions of faces. I don't know. Occupy lands I'm supposed to believe are my enemies, when here the only difference is what color gray or gravestone comes in. This one says beloved husband and dear father, and that one aged 60 years rests in peace. Some of the graves are in different languages, and yet the love cannot be turned off. Even here, where the quiet wind accompanies every step, and clear skies fastening the sun within its eye. No crap. I hate when that happens. Oh shoot. I hate that moment. And clear skies fastening the sun within its eye. Oh shoot. Guys, y'all gonna hate me right now. But I lost it for a second. I'll tag I'll tag that piece. I haven't said it in a long time, but I'll tag that piece in this so you can see the entire one on my YouTube. But yeah, after you memorize a piece, sometimes and you don't say it for a while, you don't even know where you forgot it at. It's just like crazy. I didn't even know I was gonna be sharing that piece with you. But right, I do like the random. Oh wait, I remembered it. And clear skies fastening the sun within its eye. Well, that celestial heart throbs lovingly, using its life energy to give us time to breathe. I don't believe cemeteries are horror stories, told to lull acolyte necromancers to sleep. Nor they're meant to avoid the unsettling ease. They should be embraced. When the time comes, when this husk succumbs to cremation or burial, I do not want my attendees dressed in black, suffocating in silence, cosplaying the reapers that stole away life's vibrance. I want those beautiful creatures to dress as they please. So death's repellent nature transmutes into a circle, united under one creed, with one belief. Humans are the puppets of passion, sowing seeds of love everlasting. If you seek a home to growing, may my heart guide your knowing. So yeah, that was the piece. Brain fart. No, for real. It's for real, Tiny. Hey, Artemis, welcome. I'll definitely respond to your message on the group. He remembers. I know, like, it hit me. Yeah, so, while I was writing that piece while I was at the graveyard, and it did take me 2 days, just to commune and everything like that. And then, like, I think my phone died, or just, it was really cold. And then I had to go back the next day, and it was raining on that second day. It was crazy. Thanks. But, when I was writing that piece, I was just contemplating so many things. Like, I was in the Marine Corps at the time, and, meditation, all this stuff, and that was when I really, truly experienced the experience of writing a true piece of art. There's a big difference between, like, roses are red, violets are blue. If you love me, I'll love you. No. There's a big difference between that and somebody who bleeds through a spoken word piece. There's a big difference between that and King Kong the movie. Between that and a genius business that becomes like, $700 billion or whatever the case. There's a big difference. I look at everything as art if you don't get it, right? When you bleed into your pieces, I regard that as thematic interconnectedness. And this is where we get into the 7 intelligences, right? So I can't recall if it was 1978 or something like that, but this brilliant person, I'll tag it in the blog post, but this brilliant person came up with a test called the 7 intelligences. If you're not familiar with them, they are linguistic intelligence, spatial intelligence, musical intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, logical intelligence, and the kinesthetic intelligence. So what the hell did I just say? Right? So when you take this test, and you can take it online for free, it gives you like the different percentages of where you are with your intelligences, and it's very curious. What is the linguistic intelligence? I personally have a naturally high, and remember, I'm going to keep saying this, I don't regard myself as smart or stupid or brilliant or anything like that. I just think I thematically interconnected with things that naturally poured life into me than other people who haven't. But then you have other people who have spent more time doing that than myself with themselves, because that's inner time that you spend by yourself, with yourself. And so they're at higher levels, obviously, of knowing themselves compared to me. So that's all I mean, right? Cool. So Linguistic intelligence. This just means, when you experience an epiphany, how do you actualize that energy? And these are typically the people who, they take out a piece of paper and they write it down. They become poets. They become speakers, and all those things. They feel alive. They thematically interconnect when they do speeches. When or they're just writers. Anything that has to do with them feeling alive and them writing things down or speaking, that is the linguistic intelligence, right? So the logical or slash mathematical intelligence, I mean, that one, everybody gets it. Like, I don't understand that one because if you all know me, I hate math. I was terrible in every math class. I typically had tutoring for every math class I had because when I had a math class, algebra, geometry, whatever, as long anything past division, because I loved when I was doing division, I felt smart as hell. And then when we got into geometry and algebra, it felt like, and this is the opposite of the word thematic interconnectedness. This is the second term I'm just going to go into, called cognitive dissonance. It felt like cognitive dissonance, whereas thematic interconnectedness, you feel like you're alive. You feel like lava's being poured into your bloodstream, whereas cognitive dissonance, it feels as if somebody is hooking into your soul and just like tearing pieces of you out, and you just feel cold and your heart beats slower. When I was in math class, cognitive dissonance was choking me alive. Like, I would fall asleep in moments. If I was not reading a book and not paying attention to the class, I would be asleep. Like, you couldn't keep me awake. It was impossible. It was just like, I don't care. Why do I have to know this? I knew I wanted to become like, a writer, hands down, regardless of anything. So I was like, I don't need math. Stop teaching me it. Get me out of it. I would clean the boards. I would do anything I could to get out of doing math. And then when I had to do like after school math tutoring classes or whatever, that was torture. Because to do math in school and then after school, do it for like an hour or two. Miss Myatt was my teacher, and she was brilliant. She was a very good person. But I absolutely hated it. I was like dying. She was only keeping me alive because she was pouring life energy into us because she was a great person. But it was a struggle. It was a struggle, my friends. I barely passed. I think I cleaned her boards as well. But yeah. So, logical mathematical intelligence, Isaac Newton, I talked about him in the last episode of Marketing with EbonyKeeper. Episode 1, he was, as I said, stuck for 2 years at home during the bubonic plague in the 1600s. And during that time period, the epiphanies that he had, he wrote them down, high linguistic intelligence, notice, and he came up with a theory of relativity and all these different things, a lot of mathematics, a lot of logical. So he had a high logical mathematical intelligence and he had a high linguistic intelligence, right? Cool. So then the next is kinesthetic intelligence, right? What does that mean? I realized I had a high kinesthetic intelligence. And I've noticed the more life that you experience, the more you travel, the more interesting people you meet, the more these different intelligences rise. They're not stuck at anything. Humans were infinity incarnate. So notice I'm not like sticking or collapsing people into boxes. I'm just saying, based on how much you experience and based on what personally pours life into you, that determines, all these different things, right? So kinesthetic intelligence. Like, I noticed that I had high kinesthetic intelligence when people were playing music, and when I was a kid, I was way more extroverted. So I would just start breakdancing, and I loved attention. So, kinesthetic intelligence, like, you're doing something with your body, bodybuilders, you're working out. You feel alive when you're working out. You feel like, you have control, all that good stuff, right? So spatial intelligence, this is the drawing. This is like, my mom's an amazing at this. She wrote her first book. If you don't know about it, I'll tag it into the blog post. Sabrina and oh God, I was gonna say Sabrina and the Half-Blood Prince. Oh God, I've read too many Harry Potter books. It's called like Sabrina. The Purple Shoes. Ow! I got it. Hot fire. Damn. So it's called Sabrina and the Purple Shoes. If you wanna, check out her book. She illustrated the book and wrote it at the same time. She's a brilliant person. She has this high spatial intelligence. She could look at a gorilla or a picture of a gorilla and draw it like verbatim. Like, it's crazy, you know. It's really dope. Everybody's so interesting when they actually unveil or unlock their intelligences. And I'll just say, like, you know, quick tangent. I notice a lot of people, and if not the majority of the populace, as we look over the history of mankind, you know, 108 billion people have died so far, 7.7 billion are alive right now. I've noticed that the people who don't actually spend any time on their own dreams or their own personal growth or anything like that, but they do come alive when their child does, when they notice the light in their child sparking and everything like that, and they almost live for their child. You know, I noticed that it's interesting because we don't get to ever experience what that person can contribute to mankind because they only focus on their child. And I do regard that as selfish, because, you know, if you saw this episode, you know, it'll probably come to mind if you saw it and I mentioned it. So, you know, this lady, she gets up on stage on a TED Talk, and I talked about TED Talks on my first episode. You know, she gets up on a TED Talk and she talks for like 23 minutes or something like that. I can't recall. And it just really stuck with me. You know, she was like, whew. She, after she did the whole talking and everything like that, and she trained CEOs of companies and people at a high level. She was like, you know, if you don't remember anything I said over this TED Talk, remember these three things. You know, the first thing she said, the majority of everybody on the populace, and I do think I talked about this on the first episode, the majority of everybody in the populace, you know, they eat, they sleep, they fornicate, they copulate, and, you know, they die. Like, you know, that's the majority of their life. They never do anything outside their comfort zone. And that's pretty much 98% of the entire population, if not more, over the course of our entire history, and then including those who are alive now. And then you have the second mindset. The second mindset that lasts, she says, about 5 seconds. And this mindset is everybody else who capitalized on it other than those other people. And these are the people who, during those 5 seconds, you know, it doesn't matter if, like, you know, you were taking a shower and you got out of the shower, not trying to jinx any of you. You slip and you fall, and then you just bang your head or whatever. Or let's say like you catch yourself. But during that moment when you catch yourself, you thought a thought that you never thought before. That broke through, that never occurred in your mind, right? You know, you could be getting in a fight and somebody hits you in the face so much that you get $1 billion idea, and then, you know, you become a billionaire after that if you put the work in or whatever, right? It just has to do with you thinking a thought you never thought before. Yeah. So but she was like, you know, when you write these thoughts down, make a habit out of that, because, you know, when you make it into a habit and then you start, like, you know, going back to them, you know, you start, like, you know, maybe you take this thought and then this thought that you had, you know, 3 weeks ago, and then this thought you had 4 years ago, and you put it together. All of a sudden you have a business idea. All of a sudden you have another song if you're a singer, you know, or whatever the case. For me, I've been doing this ever since I saw that episode. I've been doing that for like 5-6 years. Every time I have a new thought, I try to catch it. You know, I do my best to. And ever since I have thousands and thousands of ideas and stuff now that have just turned into so many things. I love that woman. I love that episode. Can't find it for the life of me. If I can find it, I'm definitely gonna tag it into this EbonyKeeper that blog thing. Right. Cool. So yeah, you know, she said that second mindset lasts for 5 seconds, right? So, and then she said, you know, the third thing, she was like, scientists, they calculated, and you can dispute it, whatever the case may be, but they calculated every single possibility and everything that happened ever since dinosaurs existed, to everything that happened to happen, from your great grandparents happening to me, to our parents happening to me, to you, I, being the sperm out of millions to make it to that egg and becoming who we are, right? And they tracked each one of us who are alive today, every single one of us, all 7.7 billion of us, to 1 out of 400 trillion chance, right? So, they were, you know, she was like, after she said those three things, she was like, so this is when you knit all of them together for the tapestry of yourself, right? You know, and when you spend more time with those 5-second moments, you start carving away or almost coloring in that window of that 400 trillion chance. And the more of these epiphanies that you have, the more you come to know yourself. The more you you wake in your inner giant, you write that book or whatever the case, whatever it is that pours more life into you, leave a legacy for your children, whatever it is, right? Um, you know, and she was saying, every single one of us has that responsibility because, they say ignorance is bliss. But once you know, it becomes just your fault. Like, there's no excuse or anything like that. Once you know, you're not aware. And I'm sorry, I let you know if you don't know now. But I'll tag that episode so you can, if I can find it. But yeah, I love that because I realized, like, if I don't do that, I'm gonna be like one of those people that's like, oh, I had that idea. Oh, I had that idea. And then I'm just gonna complain and no, thank you. Yeah, so spatial intelligence, you get it, the drawing, copying, all that stuff. I know I have a lot of friends who paint and stuff like that and have careers out of spending a lot of time with their spatial intelligence or mastery in their spatial intelligence. Then you have the musical intelligence, so obviously, singing, that's pretty self-explanatory. Interpersonal intelligence, so this is just, your capacity to engage with people, how you are around people, everything. And then you have the last one, which is the intrapersonal intelligence. So this one, I'm a very ambiverted person. So that means really I just have a high intrapersonal intelligence and I have a high interpersonal intelligence. So intrapersonal meaning, you're very comfortable with yourself, like you meditate, you have goals, you're very comfortable with being by yourself. And I'm very comfortable with being by myself. Whew. Other people who cause me to thematically interconnect, who cause epiphanies in me, who make me actually want to step out of my turtle shell, you could say, they're what makes me have reason to want to get out of that shell. And I've met so many people now that, you've seen them over my interview series. You see, when I go to Los Angeles and everything like that, and we do Disney and all this stuff, and April 12th, this next month, you're going to see all these people that have given me reason to get out of my turtle shell. Because if it wasn't for all these curious people I happen to meet, I would have just stayed by myself. Like, don't bother me. No, thank you. But I mean, like, woo, if you're going to make me feel alive, bother me. Please bother me. Call me, text me, let me know what's up. Because I want to know how you're going to make me feel, right? What thoughts you're going to cause in my mind. New thoughts, eh? Catch it? Yeah, so when you take this test that I'm going to be tagging into it, definitely take it with a grain of salt. It's going to be interesting to sort of observe where you are right now. But then remember, with all the books that you read and things that you do and, experiences that you personally overcome and everything like that, these intelligences will organically rise as, you go through your journey. Obviously, if you don't do any of these things, they will all remain the same forever. So now you know, right? So, yeah, so you have the thematic interconnectedness, and you should probably get it by now. Like, somebody has an idea, that courses through their body, which is like, their mind is like a factory, and the factory produces an art piece. They have the spatial intelligence. It produces into them working out. They have a high kinesthetic intelligence and such and such. Thematic interconnectedness. You get it. And then you have cognitive dissonance. So the way I look at the world that really helped me, as I was saying, understand people, since I was so introverted, was those two terms, cognitive dissonance, thematic interconnectedness, and then two more terms, which I call speaking life. And then I call speaking death. So cognitive dissonance, this one's very short for me to explain, really not as long as thematic interconnectedness, right? So when I experience cognitive dissonance, let me give you an example. Okay, so I deal with people from all different walks of life, millionaires, poor people, people in Nigeria, people in Australia, people in South Africa, people in America, yada, yada. So when you begin to meet all these different people and all that stuff, and some of them become your business partners, some of them become your friends, whatever, you start to realize trends. The people I've noticed who don't do any personal development, don't read books outside of their comfort zone or anything like that, they've been like copy paste, I would say, like, and I can easily like see, like, throughout history, like, these are copy paste people. Like, by that I don't mean any insult. I just mean that because they never capitalize on their seven intelligences, or like, really spending time with themselves, and like, getting a book from, like, say, Josh Watskin, or getting a book from like Tim Ferriss, or Seneca the Younger, or Khalil Gibran the Prophet. I'll tag all those things in the post. But because they never allowed other people's thoughts to share the mind space of their own, and they only thought from their singular perspective, it's almost as if a brain that does not that is not well nutritioned, malnourished, I should say. And they say the same things that other people have said throughout history, have the same complaints. They could be an entire first world country. My family, with they're from Haiti, so we sort of got taught a different sort of work ethic. So other people's excuses are not our excuses. So when somebody from America tell me an excuse, I'm like, I look at them like they're an alien, because I'm just like, I don't understand. Shoot, I worked on a dairy farm, bro. I was in the Marine Corps for 6 years. I've worked in IT. I've worked with my family's trucking company. I've worked as a security guard. I've worked in a lot of different places. And then, I have a business, and then I'm an artist. So, I have a different sort of work ethic, I've noticed, especially from like, Americans. But since I was born in America, like, most people are like, you're American too. And I'm like, you're right though. I'm not Haitian American, because I didn't, move here over from. Oh, welcome, Portia. Welcome to the live. This episode is about unrealized potential, right? So yeah, my family, they were born in Haiti. My mom was born in Africa, though, since they were escaping. Since every like 5 to 10 years, the Haitian president is assassinated because our economy is devastated. And that's just, and you got earthquakes and all that stuff. So Haiti needs a lot of work, right? So anyway, I'm pretty much an American, right? But I definitely I keep a space between me and certain people unless I thematically interconnect with them. Because, by the law of proximity, if you spend too much time talking with people, whatever like that, their habits, the way that they think will begin to infect you or upgrade you. It's either or. There is no in between. You're either growing or dying. That's just how humans work. We are the most advanced species on this planet. And based on how a person grows themselves, we see their influence on the planet. You have, what is his name? You have Adolf Hitler. And, for those who are familiar with Adolf Hitler's story, I'll just tell you a little bit if you're not. So, when he was younger, his parents both died when he was younger. One, I think, in 1899, and the other in like 1902 or something like that. So he was orphaned at a young age, just going from foster home to foster home. So, hey, adopt those kids. Don't keep them in foster homes. Remember, Hitler came from foster home. They need love. All right. So anyway, Hitler had a high spatial intelligence. He came alive when he was painting. But, when he was about 16, 17 years old, and he was like, sending his, how do you say in English? He was sending his, thing to college for them to accept him. He was sending his pieces there because it was his biggest dream to become like a famous artist and everything. Oh, my feet hurts. Oh my gosh. I'm in my meditation state. Oh, don't say in your meditation state unless you're meditating, right? Oh God. Okay, Indian style. My body hurts. Okay. Yes. So, right. So Hitler had a high spatial intelligence. It was his biggest dream. He only breathed life, when he was painting. And the school that he wanted to specifically go to, they turned him down twice, 2 years in a row. And, he was just broken, because it was just like he attached his reason for being. He attached his reason for living, to becoming, this artist. And so around that same time, around around like World War One, or just before World War One, he heard about all these other nationalists, or whatever the term is, for those people who wanted to restore Germans to, they were considered like, the God race, whatever, in their minds, at least, with strong amount of fantasy. imagination, I should say. And he started doing that, the Hitler sign that's now attributed to him, where they raise their arm up and everything as a teenager. And it was almost as if he transferred his big desire from becoming this world-renowned artist to, as we know, him becoming known for genocide. Using his power voice, where he breathes life through his high linguistic intelligence into people's souls, and he speaks death into them instead of breathing life. And we saw what he did throughout history. So you definitely want to pay attention to when you're breathing life or when you're breathing death. I know a lot of people with high linguistic intelligences, family members actually, and they know who I'm speaking to if they're watching this live. And I'll just say this: if you do not want to be remembered negatively through someone's past or through someone's story, through someone's biography, you should have acted better in their past, because now you become who you were, right? So you get that, right? So I've had a lot of family members actually speak death into me, not but they think they're speaking life. I've had business partners who've spoken death into me. I was being trained by someone in New York, when I had an acting teacher and everything like that. Just a quick tangent. And he was teaching me like acting and everything like that, like formally, like it was really interesting. I was paying the monthly classes and everything, and he had a lot of other actors, and he was actually writing a script, and we were all, and he's one of those other characters that should have acted right, or else now I'm telling his story through the negative, through the cognitive dissonance, higher level of speaking death, right? So and I started to notice odd things, because when we were out and about in Manhattan and everything like that, he was a very good marketer. He can get a total stranger to, I don't know why my nose is bothering me. He can get a total stranger to, let me just fix this, to take his classes, get his number, and all that stuff. And he'd be like, when we would be, hanging out, eating, whatever, after the class or before the class, he would be like, hey, John Paul, like, give them your own testimonial of my classes. And, since he was teaching me so much and I was learning so much, I was like, I would edify him to the max. And for those not familiar with the term edification, it just means, say if you don't know someone I'm introducing you to, right? And they don't know you, obviously. So, like, you guys, but I'm introducing you. And say if I'm just like, hey, Jane, this is Bruce, this is Jane. They're my great friends. All right, y'all have a talk. I'm gonna go get a drink, right? They're gonna be looking at each other like, oh, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Like, But say if I get into it and I'm like, hey, Jane, this is Bruce, man. Bruce saved my life, like, 5 years ago. I was like swimming. This shark almost grabbed me, but Bruce, like, I'm just making this up, but Bruce grabbed the anchor and just threw it and hit the shark in the freaking gills or whatever. And then he swam out and he got me, it was crazy, whatever. And ever since then, we've been business partners, we've been writing pieces together, whatever. And then Bruce, this is Jane. Jane is amazing. Like, when Jane mentions you on anything, in her newsletter, in her social media, in her email list, whatever the case may be, it's almost like the Tim Ferriss effect. Like, you will literally just get. Is somebody calling me? Oh God! Wait, give me 1 second, guys. Oh God! Airplane mode. Yeah, my apologies. You never know what's gonna happen during the live. Put it on airplane mode. Okay. Yeah. For those who might know that song, one of my friends, well, we're going through some stuff, but she made a song and she's like a beast artist, and one of her songs causes like a meditative effect on me, like the music I've been listening to for like 6 years. So I actually use it as an alarm. It's pretty helpful. So yeah. What the heck were we talking about? Shoot. Cognitive dissonance, speaking death, Hitler. Right. Oh, welcome, Antoinette. We're talking about unrealized potential, right? So, whew, man, yeah. So you saw the example of speaking death through Hitler, right? So, yeah, that totally. Whenever I listen to that totally disrupts me. So this time it disrupted me for the wrong reason. So I do see that this live got as long as the other one. I don't want to keep you guys for too long, but there was a concept I wanted to share along with those 4 terms. Now that you see how I look at the world, cognitive dissonance, thematic interconnectedness, and then there are more evolved states for cognitive dissonance, speaking death. For thematic interconnectedness, speaking life. And for the speaking life, I'll tag it. Johnny Wimbry, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Rhonda Burns, I'll tag it, Abraham Hicks, Dr. Wayne Dyer. Like, all I gotta do is say their names. Eartha Kitt. I mean, wow. I think I said Johnny Wimbry. But yeah, speaking life is just high linguistic intelligence, typically high interpersonal intelligence, because it's your ability to, for other people to want to listen to you, like your energy and stuff like that. So you actually have to not be weird, right? So yeah, so I love people who speak life. We need more people who awaken their power voices and use it for speaking life rather than speaking death, because we sort of see the results of the death speakers. And there's too many of them, and their stain upon history is so bloody that we need a lot of keepers rising up. So remember, now that you know, it's your responsibility to raise your power voice and speak life. I don't care if you're just speaking life into your child. I don't care if you're just speaking life into your partner. You have to. You don't have to. We all have free will. How should I say this? If you want to, please master speaking life. Master the power voice. Master spoken word poetry. I don't want to only be the only person doing spoken word poetry. I know there's a lot of spoken word poets, and I love pressing play on someone who's featuring or whatever, or going to a poetry slam. But we need more people, and spoken word poetry is one of the best ways to practice your power voice. Definitely is. Definitely. There's so little other things I'd recommend other than acting and a lot of other things, but spoken word poetry is the easiest way to teach yourself how to do it, hands down. And I'm building a business as well, because you can just be speaking life into people in order to cause epiphanies in their minds and everything like that. But yes, the last thing I wanted to cover before we shut out this live, because welcome, Devante. I was just ending out the episode, actually, but the last thing I want to cover for this unrealized potential episode is okay. So those who are naturally grouchy and gives attitude or sarcasm constantly are severely introverted. I've noticed that I regard this as a symptom. When you ask any doctor what's going on with you, and you tell them their symptoms, I'm not feeling well, all these different things are happening in my life, they're gonna be like, okay, you have arthritis, you have whatever it is, right? I believe the same thing can be done when it's done energetically, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't make sense if you don't meditate. Yeah? So what do I mean by that? So I know I mentioned somebody who has a lot of attitude, somebody who they're constantly mad all the time. What does that mean? Now, every single person, I look at every single person as just this beautiful puzzle box. And I feel like if they're not striving to grow or anything like that, then we never get to see them at their highest level. We get to see Les Brown. We never get to see them, and I feel like that's the most beautiful way to see a person. Just them speaking life. There's just them being themselves. And then the light shining in their eye. like, dancing or whatever the case may be. Because it makes me come alive right along with them. They bring me into their frequency and they rise me to their level. And it's just so beautiful. And they don't even have to speak my language to do this. Anybody can do it, right? So then when you have someone on the other side of the spectrum and you notice they're always grouchy, they're always mad, they never want to talk to anybody or anything like that. I think this is because all of the repressed energy of those who are not taking advantage of all of that stuff in them waiting to be transmuted into the power voice, waiting to be transmuted into all of their gifts that the world is just waiting to see. And that's why that person is just so rude to us on the train or, at work or whatever the case may be. And it took me a long time to understand that because there's some people I work with and I'd be like, yeah, I really want to tell you something. Like, I really want to. I'm like, I don't know if I want to speak death at you or speak life at you right now, but like, dang, it's just when you're bringing that poison around with you everywhere you go. A lot of people who know and are aware, they'll just cut you off and stay away. But I feel like if you're doing that whole like sarcasm thing, like it's a loop. It's a rat race. It's an Ouroboros, that dragon that eats its own tail. It goes around the width of the planet. You want to, I'd say, experiment with creation. Anything, because it's gonna be the same year over and over again. Same complaints, same everything, and you're gonna be attracting the same people. I love when I meet a new person, and they're just amazing. I don't know what they're gonna say next. You know how many people I meet who are at the lower vibration level of like, and by vibration level, I guess if you're not familiar with the term vibration, um uh it really depends on what you believe, I guess. For religious people, like, I know a lot of people might not believe in vibration, and then there are like atheists. But remember, I used to be atheist, and then now I talk about vibration. So what does vibration mean? Okay, best book I'd recommend to explain vibration, I would say The Celestine Prophecy. I'll link it. But yeah, so quantum physicists have been able to actually prove vibration, where when you zoom in on something to the small enough degree, you see that regardless if it's dead tissue or living, regardless if it's a laptop or a webcam, whatever it is, a star in space, you see that it is all vibrating at a certain frequency. And depending on how fast it's vibrating, depicts a lot of things, what kind of item it is, if it's alive, all these different things, right? So that's for something for you to research or whatever the case may be. I don't need to convince anybody of anything. I know what I thematically interconnect with, what makes sense for me, the web of things that have helped me, create the glasses I need to see the world clearer, that before used to just overstimulate me. And I still get overstimulated by dealing with people a lot, but like, since I have a business, like that's helped so much. You guys don't even understand. I used to be like an alien with people. Like, if I did not understand you and there was enough cognitive dissonance, I would just look at you like, and I would make a lot of people feel uncomfortable because I'd just be like, why are you so red? Like, I don't understand. Like, why are you so rude? Like, why this? Why that? I just wouldn't understand people. But now, with all these different added terms going into it, I'm starting to really get things. Like, it's really crazy. So, yes. Yeah. I mean, that was pretty much it. You get it. That was all I really wanted to, attack on this post. And yeah, as I said, I don't believe anybody is brilliant or stupid. I just believe you spent more time with that which you thematically interconnected, actualized, provided as a service to many people, had mentors, carved it, made it better. And compared to the people who sort of just are black holes and they just sort of like, absorb things, but they never process it. They never turn it into something. And everything is a joke. Everything is just like, but notice they would die for their children, but for themselves, they won't live. So I would just say, spend some time with yourself. Speak life into yourself. Because while the rest of us are living, please contribute to that. Because I'm curious to see who you are. And that's really what this episode is about. Each of your unrealized potential. Make me curious, please. Later.